This shall be written for the generation to come.
There's some things that aren't for sale, but I must maintain something. Standing behind this pulpit, there are some things that though death is inevitable, there is some things, though persecution and tribulation is inevitable, there are still some things that you cannot buy out or sell out.
When is the last time you've been to church where you've seen young people under such conviction because the people of God have been on their face? And there's such a concern and there's such an agony that young people are falling on their faces and calling on God because a spirit of conviction is called down from heaven upon them. How many churches have you been lately where you hear a word comes forth that so burns in your soul? You know it comes from heaven. You know it comes from the heart of God. Whatever happened to anguish in the house of God?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Faithful Futures Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Dakota Coffman. I want to introduce myself in the podcast, outline a little bit about what we're about, why I started the podcast, and what topics we'll cover. I'd also like to invite your ideas and questions and topics that you'd like to talk about. So to start, I'm the youth pastor at Welcome Tabernacle here in Stroud, Oklahoma. I have a wonderful church, so if you're ever in the area, please come visit us. I'm Okie born and Okie raised. I have a beautiful wife, 2 wonderful daughters, and I also run a small business. So I've had a burden for a little bit to do a podcast like this for some time, really. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about the podcast. And so I started Faithful Futures Podcast to reach a younger generation that I see struggling with faith and culture. My hope is that this podcast will encourage you to dig deeper into God's Word and fall more in love with Him. We'll go over a lot of different topics and we'll dig into God's Word and try to know Him and know His Word more intimately. In today's world, where absolute truth seems elusive, God's Word stands as truth. So we're going to release episodes every 2 weeks. We're going to start on January 8th, 2024. So we're going to do this to start. And then once we start receiving some ideas and topics from you all that you'd like to dig into, we plan on starting a topical episode as well. So, but for now, we're just getting our feet wet and just making sure we have everything down when it comes to all the stuff involved with making a podcast. I do hope that you can get some help out of this and start to know God more intimately as we go through His Word. We're going to be creating a website and social media pages in the near future, so please stay tuned for those. But for now, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, and we're on Google Podcasts, and we do hope you enjoy it. I'd like to invite you to submit some ideas and topics that you'd like to cover, questions that you may have. So you can submit all feedback via email to dakota@faithfulfuturespodcast.com, or we also have a form that you can submit as well, and I'll provide all the links below in the description of the podcast. So Happy New Year's, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week as we start our series in the book of Galatians.